Hey, it's Mark coming to you from Baker's Green Acres. Today's the 12th of May, and I have some very good news, and I think it's consistent with the theme of healing, moving on, rebuilding. It's just a thing that we do in the spring, you know. We take charge of things and go on to the next operation and all the thrills that come with spring and new life. Okay, this is a story. It comes off of the Michigan Small Farms Council website. I would encourage you to go there and look at the story in its entirety for yourself. I'm only going to hit a couple of the high points. This story is written by Wendy Lockwood Banka, and I know her. I've known her for a couple of years now, and I can tell you she is on the level, and this story is on the level. Okay, I'm going to throw an acronym at you here and just to educate you. It stands for Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. Okay, so the acronym is MDARD. And that's been thrown around quite a bit lately. If you've been paying attention, you would have heard that in conjunction with, cases involving people's gardens and people who want to keep some chickens in their backyard and things like that. And, you have zoning councils that are coming in and saying you can't have those chickens because it's not zoned agricultural, and you can't have a garden in Muskegon because it's not zoned agricultural. All right, which was really a ruse, and I think I explained that to you. Your right to farm does not come from the state. Your right to farm comes from the Creator, all right, that gave you this vegetation and gave you these animals so you can sustain your life. That's where your right to farm comes from, but it's enumerated in the U.S. Constitution under the Fifth Amendment, all right? Your life, your liberty, your property is protected under due process of law. So if you have the city council that comes in and says, we're going to issue this fatwa or whatever, that you can't have chickens in your yard, it's null and void because they don't have a law to back it up, all right? A lot of people will comply with that, and the more people that comply, the more power they get. And then before long, what was going on in Muskegon starts to happen, where you have the city planning commission, whoever they are, they're going to decide that you can't have a garden in town anymore, right? Well, ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. They don't make law. They can make ordinances, but if those ordinances are repugnant to your rights as enumerated in the Bill of Rights, 1 through 10, they're null and void, but you have to stand your ground. The Right to Farm Act is a 1994 act that was signed into law, and it guaranteed farmers in the state of Michigan the right to farm, regardless of who moved into the neighborhood. So if you have a pig farm and you have somebody from, from town that moves in next to you and they don't like the smell, they don't really have a leg to stand on because of the right to farm. And that's a big conversation because I don't believe we have the right to pollute, but that's another conversation we'll have maybe at another time, but maybe not. But maybe the reason we won't have that conversation at another time is because of this story right here. MDARD has not been a friend of small farms. They have not supported me through this entire ordeal, I can tell you that. But here we go. MDARD confirms the right to farm protection. The right to farm protects entire state regardless of zoning. And you can read through this, but down at the end of the story, it says, so it is with surprise that we read this new letter written by Chief Deputy Director Gordon Wank, which states quite simply, since zoning is not a requirement for right to farm coverage, the Right to Farm Act applies across the entire state regardless of zoning. Okay, what is farming? Farming is growing proteins and carbohydrates for human consumption. That's farming. It doesn't end there, but I'll leave it there. I mean, it's fiber and it's recreation. It's a bunch of other things that's included in there. But for most of us, if we want to have a garden in our yard, or a few chickens, or keep a couple hogs, or a couple calves, something like that, it's for our own personal consumption. And they are enumerating that they agree that that right to farm protection protects all Michigan citizens, not just the ones that are zoned agriculturally. So this is huge. I mean, this is huge, and it's so huge that it received very little attention, because everybody's looking at each other and they're saying, can you believe they actually came out and said that? And of course, with this adversary, we suspect, foul play, of course, because they have been dirty players ever since we've known them, and maybe they're turning over a new leaf, maybe they've got some new leadership, or maybe this is a trick. We don't know. We'll see how it plays out. I believe that if you live in Muskegon right now, you should be jumping for joy, because, in the City Council, City Planning Commission in Muskegon said that you can no longer have a garden, a vegetable garden, in your yard, right? Now, under right to farm protection, you certainly can. And if the City Council had a problem with your garden or your chickens, or you want to keep a hog in town, you could just tell them, don't talk to me, you go talk to Gordon Wenk, right? This is what Gordon Wenk said, and I'm going off of what he said, all right? The caution I want to give you there is, if Gordon Wenk thinks that he can give you the right to farm, then he can probably think that he can take away your right to farm. And your right to farm doesn't come from Gordon Wenk. Your right to farm comes from the creator of these animals and this vegetation, and that is enumerated in this document right here. And I always refer to this is the Bill of Rights of the U.S. Constitution, who our Attorney General has confirmed on several occasions that it is the supreme law of the land. All right, so we're seeing this start to play out. Maybe these guys have seen the light, maybe. And maybe it's our spirit of rebuilding, of turning over a new leaf, and let us go back to doing what we do. Maybe they're saying, you know what? Maybe we need to do that too. All right. No one's gonna get hurt here. Maybe they're figuring, if the public wants to go back and have their backyard gardens and farms and stuff like that, let them. And maybe state government has started to figure out that doing the bidding of industrial agriculture isn't as profitable as they thought it was going to be. It didn't really work out. Why would MDARD want to limit people's right to grow vegetables and proteins for their own consumption? Why would MDARD want to do that? You'd think Department of Agriculture and Rural Development would want to promote that, right? They want to promote life. But no, it seemed as though they wanted to thwart that, and they wanted to make it so you couldn't have a garden in your backyard. You couldn't have chickens in your backyard. So where do you get your vegetables? Oh, you got to buy it from industrial ag, and you got to buy it at the grocery store. Okay, so somebody does come out on top on that thing, right? So if MDARD is doing someone's bidding, it's pretty obvious. If they're not, it appears that way. And as a government agency, they should stay away from the appearance of evil here. So maybe they're seeing the light here and seeing that that is not their function. That is not what they're on the payroll to do. They are on the payroll to promote farming and rural development. Rural development, that means rural land where it's not city, and let's develop it. What can we do to develop it? I can think of a lot of things that if they would come to me and say, how can we get things going out here in the perimeter, I could give them a long, long list, right? But instead, what they're wanting to do, it appeared what they wanted to do was to stop us from doing what we were doing. But anyway, now they've enumerated, and Gordon Wenk has backed it up, that we have the right to farm. So Here's what we do. All of you out there in the perimeter, it is springtime. Buy my pigs. No, just kidding you. Although that wouldn't be bad. What you want to do is you want to start to think of ways that you can be self-sustaining, more self-sustaining. You know, I know some people are going to live in apartments. You really can't, all right? But you can put a couple buckets out on the veranda with some tomatoes in them. You can do that. And a lot of you guys that live in town, hey, get a flock of chickens. Get 15 chickens. You know, don't have a bunch of roosters in there that'll annoy your neighbors. But get 15 chickens and then share the eggs with your neighbors. That's more eggs than you're going to need in a day. And then maybe your neighbors can grow a bunch of cabbage, and then we can start sharing this food. We need to do this anyway. The strength of America is in our diverse agricultural process. That's the truth. So we need to do this anyway. But okay, 11 minutes. I'm going to cut it off here. It's Mark from Baker's Green Acres. Remember, anyone can farm, and now you need to do it.